The queen was not smiling. Since March 31st, 1547, when her father-in-law Francis I died, the audacious favorite had already laid claim to the jewels of her predecessor and two vast estates. But now, Catherine de' Medici had set her sights on the magnificent Chateau de Chenonceau, and the king was well aware of it. However, instead of rewarding his devoted wife, who consistently bore him heirs, he signed papers favoring his mistress. The luxurious Chenonceau passed into the possession of Diane de Poitiers, and Catherine vowed never to forget this humiliation. There was plenty to fight over. Chenonceau was not only a beautifully constructed castle, but also an incredibly lucrative acquisition, thanks to the vast lands surrounding it. Yet, none of its owners had ever found fortune there. Pierre de Marck, whose family had owned the estate since the mid-13th century, went bankrupt and was forced to sell Chenonceau to Thomas Bohier in 1499. The new owners seemed remarkably favored by fortune. A tax collector and supplier for the army that fought in Italy under Charles VIII and Louis XII, Bohier amassed a fabulous fortune, but the curse of Chenonceau caught up with him as well. The situation became utterly absurd. Pierre de Marck's niece bought back the castle from creditors, even though it had already been sold to Bohier. In 1512, the new owner had to repurchase the estate for 12,500 livres. Now it seemed that Chenonceau truly belonged to the royal official. His wife undertook a massive renovation, transforming the old fortifications into a modern, for the 16th century, and very elegant castle. 3 stories high, graceful, with turreted corners, it was quite comfortable to live in. Chenonceau was consecrated, but the owners never enjoyed life in the castle. Thomas Bohier died in 1524, and his wife followed 2 years later. The son of the owners, Antoine, discovered that his father had left him not only the estate but also considerable debts. However, the new Lord de Bohier was himself prone to extravagance. As a result, he had to sell Chenonceau. The property was acquired by King Francis, and after his death, the castle passed into the possession of Diane de Poitiers. By giving Chenonceau to his mistress, King Henry II not only angered his wife Catherine de' Medici but also violated French law. According to the documents, royal properties could not be gifted to anyone outside the royal family. And Diane de Poitiers, despite her long-standing affair with Henry II, had no ties to the Valois family. Of course, Diane was thrilled to receive such a generous and beautiful gift. She was well aware of the fates of the previous owners, but she dismissed these thoughts. Perhaps she shouldn't have. To start, the favorite dismissed the previous steward and hired a new one, tasking him with maximizing the estate's potential. The rent for the meadows, mills, and vineyards was increased, and meticulous attention was paid to the collection of tithes from the wines of the parishes of Chausseaux and Chenonceau. After accounting for maintenance costs and salaries, Diane received 500 livres a year from her acquisition, a substantial sum for that time. By the time she parted ways with the castle, that figure had doubled. Chenonceau produced wine, and as Diane's contemporaries noted, it was quite good. There were 3 vineyards on the estate, but 2 were leased out, and only one was cultivated by Diane herself. Each year, 7 barrels of claret and the same amount of white wine were shipped to Chateau d'Amboise, Diane de Poitiers' main residence. Interestingly, the barrels traveled through the lands of Catherine de' Medici, who owned Chateau de Chaumont and the surrounding estates. For the transit through the Queen's roads, Diane was required to pay a toll on each wine barrel. In particularly bountiful years, when 30 barrels were sent to Amboise, the costs added up significantly. The favorite personally appealed to Catherine de' Medici to waive the toll, but of course, the Queen pretended not to hear. This was her small act of revenge for losing Chenonceau. The beautiful castle lacked a proper garden, and Diane de Poitiers decided to remedy this oversight. The flower bed was constructed on a grand scale, employing stonemasons, carpenters, laborers, and of course, gardeners. It took nearly 2 years to achieve a result that would satisfy the royal favorite. But even here, the unfortunate castle showed its true nature. The waters of the Cher River eroded the new structure so badly that it took another year to rectify the damage. Then, unexpectedly, King Henry II died after a misfortunate tournament. Catherine de' Medici immediately demanded that Diane de Poitiers return the estate and Chateau de Chenonceau to the crown. In exchange, the queen allowed her former favorite to take Chateau de Chaumont, which once belonged to Catherine. Diane attempted to protest and rebel, but ultimately, she had to concede. That same year, the exchange was made. Catherine reclaimed Chenonceau, and Diane took Chaumont. From that point on, Chenonceau became a royal castle, frequently hosting lavish celebrations for various occasions. In 1589, Catherine de' Medici bequeathed the estate to her daughter-in-law, Queen Louise de Vaudemont. Incidentally, this queen's life was also far from happy. Over the years, Chenonceau changed hands many times. It was owned by the Dukes of Vendôme, then the Capuchins, and later by banker Dupin. In 1864, it came into the possession of Madame Poulos, who, like the castle's earliest owners, also faced bankruptcy. However, the castle's most glorious times were undoubtedly in the 16th century when two powerful and formidable women vied for it, Catherine de' Medici and Diane de Poitiers.